Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a raisin soda bread, and this is what it looks like. This bread has a really nice crisp outside crust, yet inside it's nice and soft and tender. So the first thing we need to do is to preheat our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius, and then you will need a baking sheet, and you can line it with parchment paper like I've done here, or you could just even butter it or spray it with one of those non-stick sprays. So soda bread, as its name implies, it is leavened with baking soda or bicarbonate of soda, not yeast. So that means it's a quick bread. It is very easy to make. And you know, this would be a great bread to go along with stews or soups, or it's really nice in the morning with a little bit of butter and jam. So I'm doing this by hand just in a large bowl. I don't bother with a mixer for this. So what I'm going to do is you will need 3 cups, which is 390 grams of flour. Now, soda bread can be made with either whole wheat flour, it can be made with all-purpose flour, you may know that as plain flour, or a combination of the two. Personally, I prefer a combination of the two. So I'm using 1.5 cups, which is 190 grams of whole wheat flour. And I think it's 195 grams, sorry. And 1.5 cups, 195 grams of an all-purpose flour, plain flour. And then, in its basic form, soda bread is really just flour, baking soda, salt, and buttermilk. You can enrich it, which I'm going to do here. You don't have to, but I prefer when I'm using the raisins to add some sugar. So you can add anywhere, depending on how sweet you want your soda bread, between say 2 and 4 tablespoons. That's 25 to 50 grams of granulated white sugar. Or you can, like I said, you can just leave that out if you would prefer. And then I'm going to add, of course, we need some baking soda, 1 teaspoon, which is 6 grams of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon, 5 grams of salt. And I'm just going to whisk all that. Or you can just get your hand in there and mix it all together. You want to make sure, especially that baking soda and salt, you really want to get that all mixed in. You don't want clumps of the baking soda, because then you have a little bit of a bitter taste. So I'm also going to add some butter. That's, you know, a lot of soda bread does not. Again, you could leave it out, but you know, I really, for a change. Now there is a regular soda bread recipe on the site with a video if you would prefer to just, you know, you could watch that one as well and then just decide which one you want to make. So I'm going to add 4 tablespoons, 55 grams of butter. Make sure it's cold, and I like to cut it into these little pieces because we're going to cut it into our flour. So it makes a little less work if you have it already in little pieces. So I'm going to cut the butter into the flour. You could just use your fingertips. You could use 2 knives and just kind of cut, or if you have one of these, really handy tool, pastry blender. So just cut it in, your butter into your flour, kind of using a rocking motion if you're using the pastry blender, just until it's in like little tiny pieces, like coarse crumbs. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's scrape that. Now, if you have a few larger pieces of butter left, I mean, don't worry about it, but this is kind of what you're looking for. Just kind of like coarse crumbs. So next, raisin soda bread, we need raisins. So a 1/2 cup, I use a 1/2 cup, 80 grams. I'm using a dark raisin. You could use a golden, or you could even use currants. And just gonna mix that in. And then, of course, we need buttermilk, which is like soured milk. And you will need about 1.5 cups, 360 milliliters of, it's cold, my buttermilk. You can buy it commercially. You can actually buy now, a lot of grocery stores sell a buttermilk powder. You can use that. Or if you can't find it or you don't want to bother running out, what you can do is take 1.5 cups, 360 milliliters of milk, and then just stir in 1.5 tablespoons of either a lemon juice or a vinegar. Stir it together, just let it stand at room temperature about 10 minutes, and you have a soured milk that would, you know, it works, I find, just as good as when I buy the commercial buttermilk. So now, when you're adding, I'm just going to make like a well in the center. When you're adding, you know, your liquid into your flour mixture, don't add all of what the recipe calls for, because it really, flour, depending on how it's transported and stored, you know, it can absorb different amounts of liquid. So, you know, you may need less than what I've said, or you may need more. So be on the safe side and start, you know, with a good amount, but not all of it. Because if you have to add more, if you add too much and you have to add flour, it tends to toughen your soda bread, which we don't want. So I'm just going to kind of work that in. You could use your hands. Important thing when you're making soda bread, which, you know, is very similar to a scone or a biscuit, American biscuit, is you don't want to over mix. That's another reason why your soda bread can be a little tough if you really mix it, and that's why I don't like to use a machine for this. I'm actually going to get my hands in there, because if I feel it, I can kind of tell. That's a little, I need a little more. Still not quite coming together. You want it like moist, but not a wet dough. I'm almost there. So you can see I'm kind of cleaning the bowl with the dough. That looks, that feels good. It's a little wet, but so that out of the way. And then just, so as you can see, I did not use all of my buttermilk. Just keep that in mind. So just lightly flour your surface. I'm using the whole wheat flour. You could use the whichever one you're using. And just knead it a bit to make sure everything's all mixed together. That looks good. So as you can see, it's a little sticky, but not ridiculous. So now I'm just going to put it right on my baking sheet. And then you want to form it into about a 7-inch round. You can get out your kitchen ruler if you want, and that's about 18 centimeters. I'm just going to eyeball it because I don't have my ruler here. So that looks about right. And then I like to just kind of adds a little, I just put a little bit of my whole wheat flour just because it looks cool when you bring it out of the oven to have a little dusty flour look on top. If you want, you can brush the top of your soda bread with some milk for help with browning. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a X on the top. Now some say it's to let the fairies out, but really it is to prevent cracking. And also, typically soda bread is just torn into 4 portions. You just kind of tear it. So if you kind of have this X, you kind of make your portions so then it's easier to break it. So there we have it. And that is our soda bread. So now into the oven. Everybody's oven's a little different. I find between 40 and 50 minutes. You want to, it will rise, it'll turn a beautiful golden brown, nice and crisp crust. And if you put a toothpick into the center, it will come out clean. Oh, and just another trick to know when your soda bread is done is you kind of tap it, it'll sound hollow, especially if you do that on the bottom of the soda bread. That's just a little test. So our raisin soda bread is done. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Beautiful golden brown color, nice and crisp on the outside. And if you tap it, it does sound hollow. So I'm just going to let this cool a little. It is so good warm from the oven. So I'm just going to let this cool, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and we come back, we'll try a piece. Our soda bread has now cooled. It's still warm though. So let's try a slice. So like I said, when we cut the cross, you could just break that apart if you want a really big piece. But I'm just going to try a little. So I'm going to actually cut it. And I love the ends because they get that nice outside crispy crust. So there's the inside. Isn't that gorgeous? I like using a little bit of that whole wheat flour, the combination. I think it really gives it a nice color and a more dense texture. And of course, soda bread and butter, they go very well together. And then I really like for breakfast having this with butter and then some jam on there too. But if you don't, especially if you don't put the raisins in, like I said at the beginning, very nice with stews, soup for lunch. Oh, that's really good. I love that crisp outside crust on the soda bread. And then inside, it's moist, it's soft. And there is a lot of flavor to a soda bread. So try it. Of course, it's at its best the day you make it. But you know what? I really think it's good the next day, either just with the butter and the jam, or you can toast it as well. That is really nice. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.